One of the most prominent voices in the Me Too movement is now facing her own accuser. The New York Times reporting Asia Argento settled a complaint filed against her. Big settlement by a 22-year-old actor and musician who says she sexually assaulted him when he was just 17 years old. The Times report states Argento paid her accuser $380,000 to keep him from suing her or releasing a photo of the two of them in bed. The irony here is that Argento was one of the first women to publicly accuse Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault, claiming he raped her in 1997 when she was 21. Weinstein's lawyers say this shows stunning hypocrisy, and fellow accuser Rose McGowan says the new allegations have broken her heart. So, does this report do damage to the movement? Joining me now, the director of policy at the Independent Women's Forum, Hadley Heath Manning, is back. Hadley, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Kennedy. Always a pleasure.
So, the Me Too movement is much more complicated, especially now when, this isn't just a woman in Hollywood who's been accused of something pretty horrific. This is someone who's been at the forefront of the movement as a victim, speaking for those who have also been abused by, various men in Hollywood.
That's right, and these accusations aren't the first to sort of reverse the roles where the accused is a woman and where the victim is a man. But this is certainly, you're right, on another level, and it brings the Me Too movement directly into the conversation. Maybe doesn't completely undermine or destroy the movement, but certainly ought to change it and ought to challenge the presumption, a feminist fiction, I think, that's out there, that women are somehow morally superior to men. People of both sexes obviously capable of wrongdoing, and people of both sexes also ought to be afforded due process. We don't have all the details, and too often these things happen behind closed doors where we can't confirm the details either way.
We certainly don't have denials either. I mean, that's what's interesting from her camp, is you don't have anyone running around saying, no, this is patently false. She's innocent. And if I were the mother of that 17-year-old kid, I would be beyond upset. And it was this young man who's now 22 who said that he came forward with all of this because he was essentially triggered by her behavior and her statements.
Understandably so. And I think, as Rose McGowan put it, heartbreaking is a word that, a lot of people might use to describe this situation. But two wrongs don't make a right. It's not, we shouldn't have any joy in pointing to someone else's shame and saying, oh, look at this person committing hypocrisy or committing some kind of double speak. In fact, instead, we should just open our minds to the idea that, yes, sometimes men are victims of sexual assault, and they deserve to be heard as well. So this is really a case where I hope the Me Too movement will simply broaden its horizons and accept the fact that even some of its own heroes, or heroines in this case, can be, can have committed wrongdoing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you see this dynamic a lot on college campuses, and you and I have discussed this because, there's really not a lot of due process. And, you talk about the idea that, and it's almost taken as an axiom that women are morally superior. And, you read a lot of stories about men who are falsely accused and what a great injustice that does to victims of sexual assault.
Well, this latest Asia Argento story really echoes a piece in the New York Times from August 13th asking what happens to the Me Too movement when the accused is a feminist. And in that case, a feminist professor, Professor Ronell at NYU, was accused by one of her graduate students that she was advising of, the things that the Title IX investigation turned up were, I'll let people read for themselves, but really wrong, really, obvious acts of sexual harassment, both verbally and physically. And so, yes, you're right. Title IX investigations often go too far. There's a reason why we have Title IX. There's a reason why educational environments ought to protect people of both sexes from having the best environment in which to learn. But we've got to consider that, yes, sometimes women, especially when there's a power dynamic in a relationship, like overseeing a graduate student or an older woman, a powerful woman in Hollywood with a young 17-year-old actor-singer, in this case with Asia Argento, that power dynamic counts for something.
All right. Hadley Heath Manning, thank you so much.